guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today is Sunday. I'm actually going to Gerry Hussey's event today in Sydney. It's called I Am, I Can, I Will or something like that, and I'm very excited. I am a big fan of Gerry Hussey and I've listened to loads of his podcasts and stuff. I feel like I found him a few years. He's very much in the self-development world, but a little bit of a mix of spirituality. He's a sports psychologist for anyone who doesn't know. So I thought what we could do today is we could go to the event together. And I know that I'm not going to really be able to probably show you all that much, even though I'll take a few clips on my phone. I thought we could take the lessons that I kind of take from it after and like share them. The tickets today were like $200, like £100, and I know that some people just don't invest in things like this, but I want to show you why you should start investing in things like this, especially if you're a little bit interested. I know that it can be a little bit daunting, like when you first start out getting into the self-development world, but going to events like these honestly changed my life. When you're in a room full of people who are like also on the same buzz, if that makes sense. I need to do my makeup because I'm supposed to be picking Pierre up in 10 minutes, well 5 minutes I'm supposed to have left in, and I haven't even done my makeup yet, so let's get that done. Okay, it's raining outside right now, but this is the fit. I'm going with these jeans, I've got my little Birks on and this like cropped blazer. I also have my hair like in this hairband. I kind of look like a bit like an Irish dancer, see? However, it just doesn't sit right at the front sometimes, so I'm just going with this vibe and like letting it be the way it is. Anyway, I've got to get the Uber now to go pick up Pira. It's in Coogee, so let's go. I'll take a few clips and then we'll reconvene at the end. Okay, so it's now Tuesday. I went to the event on Sunday. It was so good. I actually just think this video should be like a recap of what I learned, because I feel like I love mindset. I love psychology. I love like bettering my mindset, and I love like different perspectives, and I feel like mindset work is the thing that completely changed my life. It helped me have the self-belief to leave the NHS, to leave a stable career when I had no fucking clue what I was doing, still don't have a clue what I'm doing, and to be able to like go out, grow a business, be able to be disciplined, train. Honestly, it just changed my entire life. So I am a big fan of, Gerry Hussey. I think I said that at the start of this video. And I said that what we would basically do from the event is kind of go through the lessons and stuff that I learned and then tell you guys about them. So it's not going to be a super long video. It's kind of going to be a slightly different video. But I honestly would sit down and watch something like this because I love this type of shit. So essentially, the event was called I Am, I Can, I Will, right? And it was by Gerry Hussey and Stephen Daniels. So Stephen Daniels is a fella who's over here who's a mindset coach. I think it's a mindset coach. And essentially, Gerry is a performance psychologist. I think that's what it is. Yeah, a performance psychologist. The whole event was really interesting. So like, I feel like for anyone who goes to events, like super impressive, because they, first of all, they kind of come in, you watch the video, and then they basically had a screen up, but like there was no slides they were talking through. They were literally just talking from the heart. Like, I think that's one of Gerry's things, that he's like, I never like script anything per se. I'm sure he kind of has areas that he talks about, but he just kind of riffs off it, and it's like super impressive to be able to do that. And I feel like you really know what you're talking about whenever you don't need to like refer to a slideshow, even though sometimes it does keep people interested. I did feel like the entire thing, like we were hooked, and it was hours long. They did so well. So basically I'm going to talk through the different parts from it that I took away from it, and like what I took away from that, and then also pass it on to you. So I have 4 pages of notes that I made from this event. If there's one thing about me, if I'm going to something, I am milking the whole thing out of it. I'm learning from that. I'm taking that away. Like, I've been taking things already and like doing routines, which I'm going to talk to you about, like the morning routine that I've been doing since this, which was kind of similar to what I was doing previously, but you know, it's just a little bit more intentional. So the first thing that he kind of entered with was, you are the greatest you that has ever existed. There will never be another you, and no one else will ever be you. So it's so important that you remember that you are not generic. Life, however, has made you feel like you're generic, and everyone is working around this circle of life that we're all like, everything's generic. Like, he used the reference about 10,000 steps, about why the fuck is everyone saying 10,000 steps? Like, that's such a generic number. Like, why is it not 9,991? Why is it not 8,752? Like, why is it 10,000? And why are we telling everybody that they need the same thing? When the reality is that we're not. Like, the biggest lie that we are sold in life is that we're all the same. So, for example, like, a lot of people will just identify as a 28-year-old Irish girl living in Sydney, and like that we're all the exact same, when the reality is that we are so different. And the thing that he's saying about that is that we've been sold this lie that like the greatness is out there, success is out there, but the reality is that it's actually in here. Whereas we're sold this lie that it's like not us and it could never be, when the reality is that it's deep within inside of us. And I think that's super interesting because it is true, but like, if you don't have the beliefs or you don't do the work on yourself to see that, you're never going to think that it could be you, for example. So a lot of the time, as an example, people will come to, for example, to me and be like, oh, I would love to do what you do, but I could never do it. And it's like, okay, well, why could you not do it? You know? And like asking yourself those questions, I think, are so important. So it's a lot about like inner work. And I think that's what, when people say like you're doing the work, like you are constantly like reflecting, improving, working on yourself, figuring out where that belief came from and like moving forward from it. He also referred to like the labels I identity, and I think this is really important, but the I phrase that you use and that you repeat, that's your story. So you have to be careful of your I's. So for example, if I'm like, I am the type of person who doesn't work out, and that's always the way I've been, like always self-sabotage, and I always overeat, and I always struggle with these things, and you are literally reconfirming to yourself that that is your story and that is your reality, and what you speak will come into existence, for example, which I think is just so interesting. This could be a long video, by the way, because I have a lot of notes, but I'll try and summarize them, and I hope that you're sticking with me. He also said that we get addicted to our own stories and our own trauma, and it becomes a part of our identity, and we don't want to let that go. And I think that's very true. So for example, I'm going to use that in my own instance. I struggle a lot with switching off from work. I struggle a lot with like not balance. I just struggle with like guilt. I feel lazy. I grew up in a place where like I see my for example, my parent be self-employed, and like it was hard work, and I just always have this belief that like to be successful it has to be hard and it can't be easy. That is just something I've adopted. I was never told that. That's just something that I have adopted in my life, for example, and I struggle to switch off because I see like my parents struggle to switch off. So that belief is kind of like stuck with me. However, I then get addicted to that story, and I'm like, it feeds my want to work, and I'm like, well, that's just the way I am, and if I keep saying that, I'm never going to be able to work through it, for example. So yeah, we can get addicted to our own like stories, but at some stage you have to be able to let that go. And then also, when you let your own light shine, you give others permission to do the same. So I think this is really cool to see. So for example, I'm going to put it in the context, if you're somebody who is, you know, working out, and you're the first one in your friend group, or you're the first one in your like work, and you're like, oh, I don't want to be seen as like the person who works out because I feel like then they're going to mock me. Whereas if you actually are the person who is like, yeah, I'm trying to like be a little bit better, and I am doing that, you actually inspire other people to do the same way that on social media, like people will be like, oh, it's so embarrassing, but like actually you speaking your truth allows other to come into their light and speak their own truth as well. So actually you're a massive influence, and I think that's really important to see. Something weird happened with my camera there now, so I'm just going to pick back up again and hope that it doesn't happen again. It looked like there was like moisture in the lens, but hopefully that's not the case, because honestly, basically I have this water bottle, you might have seen it in my socials, but basically it's like a Thrive water bottle, but it is only from Kmart with a sticker on it, and fucking hell, I need to get rid of it because it keeps spilling. And then it went all over my Kindle light broke. I think it's just after putting water in my DJI, and it better not have, because I swear to God. But anyway, we're going to remain positive, and hopefully it doesn't happen again, but I'm just going to keep an eye on it. The one thing that he said that was shared all over social media after, and I can't stop thinking about it, is basically that your life is 900 months, right? And 300 of those months you are actually asleep, so 600 you're awake, half of which you're awake in hours you're actually working. So are you doing something that you enjoy? Now I know that would have absolutely triggered me when I was working in NHS, because I did not enjoy what I was doing, but I felt very privileged that I was like, I actually do love what I do. However, I was like, life is so short, stop holding yourself back, go for the things, work hard, but also enjoy it at the same time, because it is so short. Life is now. They kept saying that, like, stop thinking life is in the future. Like, we live in our heads that everything's like, oh, I'll wait until then, like this will happen. No, like life is happening right now. When you're watching this video, life is physically happening. So stop waiting and stop thinking and wishing, and be in the fucking present moment, because we're all so conscious of that. This sentence is essentially memento mori, which is basically means remember you will die, right? It's like, I don't know if it's a theory or whatever, but it's an important thing to remember. And I know that like Stephen Bartlett also talks about this. I know some people won't like him, but he does talk about this. And I know that obviously they were speaking about that yesterday, and that is a sentence I actually used to say all of the time when I lived in London. I was like, girl, we're gonna die someday. And I think that's so important to remember, not about it being morbid, but about knowing that it's not forever. We all walk around like this life is forever, but the reality is, babe, in another 10 years, another 20 years, another 30 years, like, honestly, like, in another 30 years, I'm going to be someone's grandma. Like, what the fucking helly? Like, 30 years time. It's absolutely insane. So, like, remember that we should be living in the present moment. And this is something I've been trying to do a lot more over the last few weeks. There's a lot going on in my life that you will be brought up to speed with very soon. But yeah, I feel like I just fucking constantly live in the now, like, action, move. No, we all want to be in the present moment, okay? This is also beautiful. Every day is a new day you've never lived and a day you'll never get again. So even though we feel like our life is probably made up of loads of mundane days and like you're like, oh, but like how beautiful is it that you literally are only like, this morning I'll never repeat again. Like even if I repeat it, it's never going to be the exact same. I'm never going to walk past the same people in the street. I'm never going to be in the gym at the same time with those people. I'm never going to feel the way that I felt exactly in the moments that I felt them. Like, I think that's absolutely so beautiful to hear. And I was like, I feel like hearing those things just really reminded me of my mortality, but also like the beauty of life and like being in the present moment. So I hope that's what you take from this as well. The next thing that stood out was the quality of your life depends on the quality of the questions you are willing to ask and willing to answer. Mic drop. Mic drop. Because if you put this in an instance, a lot of the time we will never ask the probing question to go further into the why behind the things that we're struggling with. So for example, if I'm like, oh, I'm in a bad mood today, but never find out why I'm in the bad mood. We usually just coast through life being like, I'm in a bad mood, I'm in a good mood, I'm in a bad mood, but you never actually experience the like why behind that, or what was holding me back behind that, or you know, where was the situation. So next time it comes up, I'm able to identify it and move past it. I don't have to be in a bad mood, for example. Or like you're always one question away from asking. So for example, like if you don't ask for the job promotion, if you don't ask for somebody to help you, if you don't ask for somebody to show you that, how will you ever know? If you don't ask those questions, you're putting yourself out of the opportunities. And this was another thing, is that we are only ever conscious of 50% of the opportunities available to us at all times. 50%. There's a whole 50% out there that we're not even fucking considering. I'm sorry, but that's absolutely mental. That's absolutely mental. I pay for Gerry Hussey so that you don't have to, but yeah, I thought that was so interesting. And I'm just like, hopefully whenever I'm saying these out loud that it like hits you, because I feel like everyone in the room was so different, everyone's having a different life, but it just fucking hits. I just think it's so interesting. Another thing I find really interesting is that Gerry helps a lot of people, for example, right? And he was saying, and it is very true, I also do this a lot in coaching, but he was like, I don't have the answers. Like, I do not have the answers. Nobody outside of you has the answers. But I'm able to help people because I basically just repeat back to them what they've said and help them find the solution. And people are like, what? But it is very true. Like, if somebody is struggling with something, you're like, okay, well, why are you struggling with that? And then they say it, and then you're like, okay, well, what do you think that you could do? And then they say it, and you're like, that is the thing that you do. You just doubt yourself and don't go through with it. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like people are like, oh my God, some people have this like awful, this amazing gift. But reality is like, actually your therapist and stuff, when you sit down and realize that they'd never give you advice, they literally just say something back to you or put it into a perspective that is maybe in a better light for you. So I thought that was super interesting, and it's cool to be able to see how somebody would like coach someone. Then the next bit that I have is on stories, beliefs, subconscious programs. So beliefs drive everything. We see the world through our subconscious programs, which are our beliefs. So you don't actually see the world as it is. You see the world through your own lens. So everybody is walking around with glasses on, for example, and their glasses are playing like a specific movie based on their beliefs. That is so fucking true. And that's why somebody would see like, you know, something happening as something terrible, whereas someone else would be like, that's not that bad. Do you know what I mean? An example could be if you work in social care and, you know, something in the social care happens, like, you know, a kid gets taken off parents or something bad happens, which is very sad, that like a normal person would be like, that's terrible, whereas you have become accustomed and immune to it to be like, no, that's just the way life is. And the same way when things are very positive, some people get very high and then other people are like, no, I know I don't let myself get to that level of emotion, for example. Which is so true. And that's why some people are like more negative and more positive, because people are seeing it through a completely different lens. Like somebody would see traffic as something terrible, whereas somebody else is like, burnt toast theory, they saved my life somehow, you know, which is absolutely so interesting. I find that. And then also, this is very interesting. Sorry, I keep saying this, but once you hold a deep subconscious belief, you will make everything fit that belief, which is so fucking true. He basically was like, you will manipulate everything to make it fit that. And I know that this can be true because, for example, if you're having a tough time with something, you don't want to hear solutions. You do not want to hear solutions. I know that I do this sometimes, and I might do it for 2 or 3 days where I'm like, no solution, I don't want your solution. But then after a while, I'm like, oh, actually, that was the solution and it will be okay. But at the time, you're like, no, I want this belief to be true, so I'm going to make everything about it be true, which is fucked in the head. And then following on from that, your conscious mind will go out into the world and basically try and find things that match your subconscious beliefs. So you'll see the world only through the lens that you believe in your heart. And also, when you speak about something, you bring your awareness and your energy there. So whether it's magnifying pain or it's magnifying power, because you're giving it the energy, it's going to be magnified regardless. So if you're like, that is the best thing in the fucking world, I can't believe I did that, I'm absolutely incredible, you will be feeling that. Whereas if you're like, that was so traumatic, that was absolutely awful, and you keep replaying that in your head, you're going to feel that in your body, and your body does not know the difference between it being a real life scenario and it not being real life. And I can completely see how this is true, because for example, if something happens and you're really stressed and then you talk about it later and you get just as stressed and you feel it in your heart and you feel that anxiety that you felt previously and you're like, what the fuck, it didn't happen. That's the same with PTSD. Or like, for example, I was in a car accident a few years ago with my mother. Everything was fine, however I was traumatized from it. And even to this day, I'm like, I feel like I am literally going through that crash sometimes when I'm in the car and I'm holding on to the side and nothing will be happening, but in my head I've just like made up this story that it's going to happen, and I will literally feel the visceral feelings of it happening. So I find it so interesting, but it is very, 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 very true. I actually had a call with my mindset coach, who is Zoe Dunley, for anyone who doesn't know. I've been going to her for the last few months, I guess like 2 months, month and a half really. And she's been so helpful for me. But one thing that I was saying to her today, I was like, this actually really helped me, was you need to at some stage allow your past to be less important than your future. So one thing that I've always struggled with in terms of like mindset work and like coming to a certain belief is I've always got so far and then that belief will just fucking reel me back in. And I'm like, but how do I fix that? How do I overcome that? What is the step? What is the thing? Because people are like, I've done the work. I'm like, what work did you do? I don't understand. Like, I still have that belief in my system. For example, the one that I'm like struggling with in terms of like work-life balance and like not being on all the time and the guilt of not working, and God forbid I went to the beach in the middle of the day, you know what I mean? It sounds so stupid, but to me it feels so visceral, and I always get so far, I'm like, yeah, okay, I went to like the beach on a random Tuesday and it wasn't that bad, but like I fall into the same habits, the same routines, the same burnout cycle, the same thing, and it's just shite. But I'm always like, why? Like, what is the answer here? But I feel like it just summed it up, because at some point you have to be more obsessed with where you're going than your past in itself. So like, rather than ruminating on like where it came from and what it was from, whilst you need to identify that and you need to do work on that, at some stage you have to realize that it's time to let go of the story. It's time to let go of the story, and it's time to start writing a new story. And it does not mean that all of a sudden you'll just forget about those things, but it does mean that you have to put the work in actively at the present time whilst it's difficult, until it at some stage becomes a new belief, and that's just the way you were living your life. So like, Gerry Hussey is a very good example of that. Like, he struggled with his mental health severely whenever he was younger, and he tried to unfortunately take his own life a few times, and now he's standing on a stage helping other people. Do you know what I mean? His belief system is completely different, and I'm sure he still has to actively work on certain beliefs to this day. Like, nobody is perfect, and I think that is really important to see. But anyway, I'm not sponsored by Gerry Hussey, but I'm a big fan, and I do think that if you wanted, you could. And if you're watching this and you're in Ireland, he is actually doing a show in Dublin. Okay, we're almost there, because we're going to come to the routines at the very end. But the part that was interesting was basically, he was saying that your emotions are never in your brain, they're in your body, and that is scientifically shown. So if you ever have an emotion that's very overwhelming, it's very important that you get it out. The easiest way to get it out is by shaking, moving, dancing. So like, that sounds chaotic, but if you're having a really stressful time, it's very visceral in your body. Like, put on a good song, shake it out, do the bits, you know, move it. And he was talking a little bit about like your sympathetic nervous system, your parasympathetic nervous system. Whenever there's like a threat, your sympathetic nervous system is turned on, whereas whenever there's an opportunity, your parasympathetic nervous system is turned on, which is like your rest and digest. The other one's your fight and flight. But you cannot fire both at the same time. So you can't be in a situation where you're like, I'm calm, but I'm fucking stressed about this thing. If you're fucking stressed about something, that is overpowering the calmness that is happening. And also super interesting, but when your parasympathetic nervous system, the calm one, is switched off, your immune system is switched off. Hence why people get so sick. And also, the other thing is, whenever you're like feeling anxious and depressed, he was saying that it's a nervous system dysregulation, which obviously you know, but it's when your nervous system is accidentally like stuck on the sympathetic nervous system and can't get off into the parasympathetic nervous system. And it has very little to do with the outside world and everything to do with your interpretation of situations and the inside world in your head and your beliefs. So very little to do with what is actually happening out here, and very much to do with what you're perceiving that situation to be out here. Okay, I thought we were coming to the end, but it turns out we're not coming to the end, so I'm going to bam through the last few bits. He said, people pleasers are master manipulators. And if you're a people pleaser, you're going to be like, what the fucking hell? I know I am not a people pleaser, I wouldn't say at all. I've definitely worked on my people pleasing habits, but I wouldn't say I am one at all. But he was basically like, you should be scared of people pleasers because they essentially will shapeshift into making themselves the most likable version. So actually, they're never showing up as their authentic self. And like, do you really want someone in your life who's not doing that and he's just trying to please you and isn't actually living their truest form? So again, if you're a people pleaser, it's not to be like you're the worst person in the world, but it is interesting because it is very true, like that they will essentially do whatever they can because they're trying to value social affirmation over self-expression. And this is something that I actually do with my clients, but a lot of the time whenever you're a people pleaser, you constantly focus on what you're missing out on. So for example, like sometimes you have a goal and you can't go out socializing and drinking, for example, because you've got this goal and you're like, oh, but I have to miss out on the night out. But you're never actually focusing on what you're gaining. So that's a good thing to do as a people pleaser, is to focus on like, what would I gain from saying no? Because that's what I really need to start learning how to do, is saying no. And like, I need to ask myself what I could actually gain from saying no. So for example, you are moving forward in your goal, you're feeling better in yourself, you're actually able to wake up the next day, you're able to train, your mood is a lot higher, you're saving money, all of the benefits to it rather than all the negatives. I feel like that helps you make a better decision. Then essentially, in terms of like the past, so he was very clear on like, it was very future focused, like moving forward, and he was very clear on the fact that a lot of healing is about the past, and obviously you have to go back in order to go forward, but a lot of people kind of get stuck in the backward bit, and that can happen a lot of the time. But he was essentially saying like, from 0 to 8, that is when you're in theta brainwave state, so that's where you're essentially in meditative state. That's where like you're very moldable and you're picking up basically everything that's going on. After that age, a lot of the beliefs are already made, if that makes sense. So it's important that you go back to your like 8-year-old self, whether it be like through CBT or whether it be through like meditation, and like kind of figure out like, not just like, okay, I'm my 8-year-old self. You're like, I am my 8-year-old self. What was I thinking? What was I feeling? What was I wearing? You know, what was the overall energy of me? And then you can kind of go back and like heal that inner child to be able to move forward. But at some stage, you need to let that 8-year-old self go and be like, I'm going to be okay now. Like, we're moving forward, rather than constantly just going back there and sitting with that 8-year-old self, if that makes sense. Anyway, that's going to sound absolutely mental to somebody who doesn't like meditate and stuff. But if you've gone to anything like that, you will know that those type of things are very, very, very helpful. But what I loved most about it was that he was like, you do have to go back, but you have to go back in order to go forward. Because I feel like a lot of, and it probably is just marketing, but a lot of somatic work, like breath work, kundalini, all of those things, and a lot of therapies, all are about going back and like focusing on the past, but very few of them focus on the past and then bring you forward. A lot of the time you're actually just come out of a session and you're just like left on your own, and then you're like, I don't know what to do with this. And sometimes you do make it your way forward, but unless you have integrative work throughout, very hard, very hard. Okay, now we're at the fun part. So this video is going to be just like a sit down. You've already, if you sat here with your cup of tea and you've been taking your notes, fair play to you, girl. And actually, if anybody watches this fully through and wants me to actually send them over my full notes, I'd be happy to do that as well. But he was talking about the morning time, so talking about a routine. And one thing he did say was, instead of always looking at like what helps me regulate my nervous system, so like breath work, ice baths, meditation, ask yourself, what is dysregulating me? So remove those things in your life if you can, those micro stressors. And then you can also have the things that's like your maintenance program of like, you know, looking after yourself. So he basically said between the hours of 6:30 a.m. and 7 a.m. is very important time of day because the sun is rising, and obviously we are related to our circadian rhythm. But he did say that whenever you wake up, it is important for you to ask yourself, like, what does my body need today? Because I think a lot of people are stuck in this like go, 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 especially if you're like a type A type person. You're like up at it, but then you're wrecked and you haven't actually given your body what it actually needs, when in reality it could have just needed a slightly slower morning and then like lift up in the day. I know that's currently where I'm at. So he says he does a routine that's 20 minutes to 30 minutes long. I would do this anyway, that's a slight variation of this, but I then put it all together and have been doing it the last 2 mornings, and I've been feeling amazing, even though I have definitely been tired. So I've been listening to my body. But so for the first 20 to 30 minutes of the day, it involves shaking. So putting a song on and like shaking the energy out of you to like switch your vibrations, get your body turned on, get the energy flowing, set the energy up for the day. Breath work, so like 5-10 minutes of breath work. You can do it on YouTube. I use Alana's Rewire app. It's absolutely incredible. My clients use that as well, but there's also loads like online. I know Gerry actually has a YouTube channel that has some of them on there. Meditation, so you can do breath work that has meditation in it, or you can do it completely separately. And then affirmations. So he was talking about the power of like I am sentences. So the same way that you're like, I am a bad person, they're very negative. But if you're like, I am powerful, I am strong, I am smart, I am capable, I'm an unbelievable communicator, you need to say those phrases in the first 30 minutes of the day and the last bit before you fall asleep, because that's when your brain is in theta brainwave state, the same way between 0 and 8. And that's when you're most receptive to actually take that in and reprogram your own belief system. Now, you will not feel like it at the time. You will be like, I am strong. And initially you'll be like, I'm not strong, I'm weak. But you have to keep saying it in order for it to become true. So it's very normal for you to start affirmations and be like, this is a pile of shite. But again, he said, if you have not tried something for 100 days, you have not tried it. And I think that's so true, because I am sick of people saying things don't work. And I'm like, babe, you have barely tried it for a wet week. Like, try it for 3-4 months and then see if it works or it doesn't work. But something in isolation is never ever going to work. Like, it's never going to work. Or it might work once and then it'll not work again. But you have to do something consistently in order for it to actually give you the results that you're looking for. Then it's journaling and 5 gratitudes. So gratitudes is something I get every single client that comes through my doors to do, is 3 gratitudes a day. Say what you're grateful for, why you're grateful for, and actually sit and be grateful for that thing. Again, I was just off a call with Zoe earlier on, and she was like, I was like, I'm living the life now that I once dreamed of, right? But why the fuck sometimes am I so ungrateful? I'm not sitting ungrateful, but I'm like, oh, like, I'm so grateful to have this today. But I don't feel the gratitude that I used to feel when the first time I ever got to, like, you know, have my own morning to myself and go for a coffee rather than running into the NHS. I felt so much gratitude back then. I was like, at what stage did I start bringing on all the worries and the complacency? And then she was like, I think you should try instead. So for anyone who's feeling a little bit lackluster with their life at the minute, or not lackluster, because I love my life, but like, you know, that I was like, I don't like that I'm feeling that way about this, when the reality is I'm very, very lucky and I've worked very hard to be where I am, but it's important to understand that. And she was like, I think what you need to do is write down, like, okay, what did I have in my day today that a past version of me didn't have, and I'm really proud for having right now. So I was like, oh my God, when she said that, I was like, oh my God, there's so much. And I feel like that brought my life back and my zest back. So sometimes you do have to do a little bit of a different way. So if you're not relating to the gratitude, something like that can be really, 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 really helpful. But it is important for you to ask yourself what your body needs, because sometimes it is a lion. And I love that he said this, because I feel like we're living in a culture where it's like, up at 5 a.m, up at 4:45, let's fucking go. But like, sometimes your body just needs a lion. Sometimes you just need a lion to get up the next day, because he was like, what is the point in all these idiots walking around getting up for sunrise, but they're zonked all day? You're better off sleeping in for an hour and then having energy throughout the day. So I thought that was absolutely so powerful. At the end of this, I actually thought it would be helpful for me to share a few other people that I really look up to in terms of mindset work, and that I think that you can go and follow. So the first one is Zoe Dunley. So I'm obviously working with Zoe and I'm a paying client. So while she is a friend, I'm a paying client, and I've been working with her and I find her very, very, very helpful. And honestly, just to have somewhere to like go and talk to. I've done therapy and stuff before, but I do struggle with sometimes the lack of action point moving forward, whereas I feel like mindset coaching is very much about identity work and then moving forward into the future, which I really like. Lisa Ryan is another girl I want to mention. So Lisa Ryan came into my life in November when I went on the retreat, and the first thing I actually said to Lisa was, you remind me of Gerry Hussey. I was like, have you ever met Gerry Hussey? I was like, you sound exactly like him. And she was like, what? And then she was like, I'm obsessed with him. And I was like, you literally, like, you remind me so much. And she was like, he is literally like everything to me. Like, I love him so much. I'm really like, I love his teachings and stuff. And it was really cool to see, because Lisa actually ended up doing events over here with Gerry whilst he was here, and it was so unbelievable to see Lisa's like thing come into real life. So I'm very, very proud of her for that. But yeah, she does unbelievable work. She actually does work with her dad, so that's so cool, because I think having the perspective of a younger person but like an older soul as well, like working together on mindset moving forward. It's called Mindset Ireland. She has a program called Evolve, I think it's called, and I would definitely recommend as that as a starting point if you're trying to get into the self-development world. Other podcasts and stuff that I love listening to, or loved in the past, was Rob Dial. He's very digestible on YouTube, on Spotify, and Tony Robbins is obviously a goat that everyone will kind of know, but a lot of his stuff on podcasts are very, very helpful. I find Rob Dial quite digestible, so I feel like if you're kind of starting in the world, that is really, really, really helpful as well. Obviously, there are so many different people out there who are talking about mindset and different things, but I think it's important that you relate to them to the point where you can relate to them and open up. I think is the most important thing whenever you're working on your mindset and you're doing like the inner work. And I think always to remember that there's nothing wrong with you. Okay, there's nothing wrong with you, and wanting to better yourself is exciting, and it's not for everyone. So like, don't be triggered if somebody's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, it's up to you to want to do it, and it's not that we have to do these things, but like, I think you owe it to yourself in this life, if you're not feeling 110% in yourself, or you're wanting to better yourself, which we all should as humans, and have purpose in your life, that you can like do that and like work on yourself. I think that's really, really important. The other person I actually wanted to mention was Martine Dine. So Martine is an incredible woman who lives over here in Sydney. She's actually going with Sean's Perception. Everyone will know him from The Sunrises, but Martine has an incredible story. She actually has recently left her job, started her own life coaching business, which I feel like for people who are feeling a little bit lost as well, that can be absolutely incredible. She was at the Expand Her event the other day, and yeah, I just found having the conversation with her was so good. And she just, every time I leave her, I'm just like, you are an inspiration. She struggled with breast cancer and overcame it, and now she's a big advocate for that as well, and just an incredible woman. I think just being around that type of energy is incredible, and the point of putting yourself in the room is insane. So I know that he's doing an event, but anything like this, like I was laughing because I was like, I paid $200 for that event, and I was like, yeah, $200, no worries. Whereas like some people will be like, that is fucking mental that you paid $200 to do that. But I'm like, the mindset shifts that I'm having that are going to come into my life now, and the work that I'm doing now, that I'm like, you know, appreciating my cup of coffee in the morning, that I'm literally sitting, I'm asking my body what it wants, I'm regulating my nervous system, I'm focusing on like moving forward and like wanting to be a better person and helping more people and like sharing this. Do you know what I mean? And like he was saying, like, if you allow your light to be shown, or like for example you speak up about something, you allow other people to speak about their experiences as well, and I think that's really, really important. Anyway guys, I'm going to leave you at this video. This is a completely different style of video, but I think it's super interesting, and it was really fun for me as well to reflect on the things that I learned. I hope that you have a beautiful day. If you like this YouTube, please make sure that you like. It takes 2 seconds, honestly, it takes 2 seconds, and you don't understand the meaning whenever you pop a little comment below, so I'd be so grateful for that. Share it with a friend if you find it helpful, and I will see you in the next video.